The Loyal Dog. Part 1. The conflict begins. In a quaint small town nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, there lived a man named John. He was a solitary figure, often seen wandering the streets with his loyal dog, Max, a spirited golden retriever with a heart as big as his bark. John and Max shared a bond that transcended words. They were inseparable companions, exploring the great outdoors together every chance they got. One crisp autumn morning, with the leaves painted in hues of orange and gold, John decided to embark on a hiking adventure in the nearby woods. The air was fresh, and the sun filtered through the trees, casting playful shadows on the ground. John felt invigorated as he set off on the familiar trail, Max trotting happily beside him, his tail wagging with excitement. As they ventured deeper into the woods, John marveled at the beauty surrounding them, the rustling leaves, the chirping birds, and the distant sound of a bubbling brook. He felt a sense of peace, a welcome escape from the hustle and bustle of daily life. However, as he navigated a particularly rocky section of the trail, his foot slipped on a loose stone. In an instant, John lost his balance and tumbled down into a deep ravine, landing awkwardly on the ground. Pain shot through his leg, and he realized with dread that he had injured himself badly. He tried to move, but the sharp ache in his leg made it impossible. Panic set in as he called out for Max, but the dog had been startled by the fall and was momentarily frozen at the edge of the ravine. Max, sensing his owner's distress, quickly regained his composure. He peered over the edge, his eyes wide with concern. John looked up at Max, his heart racing. "Max, I need you," he called out, his voice strained. The loyal dog's instincts kicked in, and he knew he had to act. Part 2. The Act of Courage. Max's loyalty and courage surged within him as he barked loudly, his voice echoing through the trees. He darted back and forth along the edge of the ravine, desperately trying to attract attention. His barks were filled with urgency, a plea for help that resonated in the stillness of the woods. As he ran, Max's golden fur glistened in the sunlight, and his eyes were filled with determination. He knew that John was in trouble, and he couldn't just stand by. He raced back to the trail, where he had last seen other hikers. With every ounce of energy, he sprinted, his paws pounding against the ground, hoping to find someone who could help. A group of hikers, enjoying their own adventure, heard Max's frantic barks. They paused, exchanging curious glances. "What's that dog doing?" one of them asked, tilting his head to listen. Max, sensing their presence, began to leap and bark even more energetically, urging them to follow him. The hikers, intrigued and concerned, decided to follow the spirited dog. They trailed behind Max as he led them back to the ravine, his instincts guiding him with unwavering focus. The closer they got, the more frantic Max became, darting back to check on the hikers and then racing ahead, ensuring they stayed on his path. Finally, they reached the edge of the ravine, and the sight that greeted them was alarming. There, at the bottom, lay John, pale and in pain, struggling to move. "Help!" he shouted weakly, his voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. The hikers quickly rushed to the edge, their eyes widening in shock. Part 3. The Turning Point. "Stay right there. We're coming," one of the hikers called out, quickly assessing the situation. They could see that John was injured, and time was of the essence. The group sprang into action, one of them immediately dialing emergency services while others began to formulate a plan to rescue John. Max, sensing the urgency, stood by John's side, his presence a comforting reminder that he was not alone. The dog licked John's face, offering solace amidst the chaos. "Good boy, Max," John murmured, feeling a surge of gratitude for his loyal companion. Within minutes, the sound of sirens pierced the tranquility of the woods, growing louder as emergency services approached. The hikers guided the paramedics to the ravine, explaining what had happened and how Max had led them to John. The paramedics quickly assessed John's condition, carefully lifting him onto a stretcher. As they worked, John looked at Max, who was now sitting beside him, his eyes filled with concern. "You saved my life, buddy," John whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Max wagged his tail, as if he understood every word. The bond between them had deepened in that moment, forged through shared adversity and unwavering loyalty. Part 4. Justice Prevails. With John safely secured on the stretcher, the paramedics began to carry him up the steep incline of the ravine. Max trotted alongside them, his presence a constant source of comfort. As they reached the top, The sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a warm golden glow over the scene. The hikers who had followed Max stood by, watching with a mix of relief and admiration. Once at the top, John was placed in the back of the ambulance, where the paramedics began to assess his injuries. "You're going to be okay," one of them assured him, checking his leg and applying a bandage. "Just relax. We're going to take good care of you." As the ambulance doors closed, John looked out at Max, who was now sitting patiently by the vehicle, his eyes fixed on his owner. "I'll be back, boy," John promised, his heart swelling with gratitude. "You're my hero." At the hospital, John received the treatment he needed for his leg injury, which turned out to be a fracture. He was grateful for the care he received, but his thoughts kept drifting back to Max. He knew that without his loyal dog's quick thinking and bravery, things could have turned out much worse. After a few days in the hospital, John was finally discharged. As he stepped out into the fresh air, he was greeted by the sight of Max, who was wagging his tail furiously, his excitement palpable. John knelt down, and Max bounded into his arms, showering him with affectionate licks. "I missed you too, buddy," John said, his voice thick with emotion. From that day forward, John made a promise to himself and to Max. He would never take their adventures for granted again. He began to plan safer hikes, always ensuring that he had the right gear and that he would never venture too far without letting someone know where he was going. Their bond grew even stronger, and John often shared the story of how Max had saved his life with friends and family. He became an advocate for responsible pet ownership, emphasizing the importance of training and understanding the instincts of animals. Max, for his part, continued to be the loyal companion he had always been, accompanying John on every adventure, whether it was a hike in the woods or a simple stroll around the neighborhood. Their connection was a testament to the power of loyalty and love, proving that sometimes the greatest heroes come with 4 legs and a wagging tail. In the end, John learned that life is precious and that the bond between a man and his dog is one of the most profound relationships one can have. Max had not only saved his life that day, but had also taught him the true meaning of companionship, loyalty, and the importance of being there for one another, no matter the circumstances. Together, they continued to explore the world, side by side, ready for whatever adventures lay ahead.